An identity is how you show up, who you think you are, the voice that you state or fail to state, the action that you take that defines certain views and characteristics and thoughts and beliefs about yourself. Now, identities are inherited to a great degree because by birth, you know nothing about the things that are taught to you. And therefore, through that teaching and living and growing, you already adopt a lot of the things about those who surrounded you in your early years before you even start to have a brain of your own, to have a mind of your own, and to learn to craft an identity of your own if you're lucky enough. Because for a lot of us, we sit in those inherited identities and we adapt them and drop a few things and then mold them into who we are. But as you progress in life, you get to a point where you need to really start asking yourself who you are and fitting in the varied aspects of your life and trying to create multiple identities for each one of those roles. Because the difficulty is that we often define ourselves as static people and get stuck in certain identities that are not growing or progressive. The reality is that change requires new identities. You need to show up as someone else who meets that new role, that new goal that you're setting for yourself. If you want to be vulnerable and loved and belonging to somebody, you cannot show up as a wolf, wanting that cuddle, that soft pet-like relationship from somebody. At the same time, you do have times in your life when you need to be the wolf, when you need to show up like the lion, and you need to own that identity and accept that you're cuddly, but you're also that wolf. And that's the mistake that we also make by stating that you're not this person. You're limiting and capping yourself into a static identity. Every situation needs you to show up as something else or some other skill that will meet your needs and level up in those situations. When you reach for goals, you have to boost yourself and reach up and hang on to those things that seem out of your reach when they are presented to you. And in other cases, you want to back out and be alone and be safe and be out of the limelight when it suits you. And that's how you go with the flow and you master those different identities that belong to you. I was listening to an interview between Brene Brown and Oprah Winfrey where she speaks about belonging, how she owns her identity and nobody else. It doesn't belong to her children. It doesn't belong to her spouse. She belongs to herself. And she owns her trauma. And she only shares her dirt or her issues or her trauma with her Move Your Body friends. And this is someone who was recommended to me by a very loving friend, Enista, who keeps telling me to look into Brene Brown and follow her and listen to her walks and words because she is mind-blowing in the way she inspires people. So according to her, you don't belong to anybody. You belong to you. And that gives you the permission to be whoever you want to be vulnerable when you need to be vulnerable, to be strong and selfish when you need to be selfish, and above all, to never fit in. Because that's when you lose your identity and try to become someone else. Fitting in means adapting to someone's expectations, someone's value, a circle that has been created by someone who expresses different feelings and emotions and thoughts and values than who you are. And by wanting to be with them and to belong with them and to fit in with them, you're shedding valuable aspects of your own character and identity to fit into that circle. So you need to choose who you relate with, what you share, when you share it, and what the impact of that sharing is. Because sometimes people insult you because you have placed your trauma upon them to be minimized and to be insulted because they don't see it from your experience point, from your impacted level, from your ownership level. And therefore, you need to take accountability of how you come across and what you present to people before they judge, dismiss, or insult. So based on this little information, the few things that I want you to learn about your identity is that there is an individual identity space that belongs to you and you alone. You have social identities, you have parental identities, and you have every other identity that depends on that inner core identity that you first of all define for yourself. Because as a spiritual person, you show up as your true self. It doesn't even matter what you preach in church, what you show in public. The values in you that come out as a Christian are going to be independent and relevant to you, even though you practice Christianity. And the same goes for cultural values. Your culture will dictate certain expectations, but there are still a lot of people who go contrary to those expectations or who adapt them to their own personalities and their own circumstances, because at the end of the day, you come first and you need to own that identity. And one of the examples around this is the cultural issues around grieving and mourning. When it's dictated that you need to cut your hair and you need to wear your black for a certain amount of time, and you need to be isolated for a certain amount of months post your spouse's death, especially for women who need to go through all those imposed rituals. And at some point, it becomes really isolating at a point where what you need the most is comfort and understanding. And therefore, you have to go within to stick and use those individual values to get you through some of those impositions, or actually to be brave enough to belong to you, to make them yours, to make the other external social relationships valuable to you, to meet your needs. Now, when it comes to identity, there are a few things that you need to really understand and use them for yourself, for your benefit. The first one is to understand how you identify. Who are you? And what are all the identity hats that you wear? Because that's the one thing. There's no one you. You identify as a lot of things, but you show up as the one that is suitable for that instance. The second one is to own your identity, to become that person that suits that identity, and not, I am not their wife, I am not their mother. They are valuable to me because I'm the central person in that identity. Do not fit in, that's the other one. And that can only happen if you own your identity. Don't give away your hand, lend a hand. Because there's a difference between giving a hand and losing an arm. And that's when you fit in and start to manifest other people's rules and impositions and values. Finally, assess your identity to see if it meets your needs, or if it meets your needs still. Because sometimes we grow out of those identities, just like we grow out of ages. You grow out of roles, you grow out of employments, and you sit within the same identities. You need to be able to love who you were until today and let it go, to step into a new identity without apologizing. And in other cases, you need to face that anxiety and embrace the identity anyways, because that's the only way you grow. And finally, diversify and embrace all your identities, because you're not one person. Sometimes you need to show up like the wolf and the lion and attack those opportunities or demons or challenges. And in other cases, you need to go in and seek peace and get away from it all. And sometimes you need to be the one reaching out and lending a hand and inviting other people in, and not just trying to fit in and give in. I hope you can start to see yourself differently and start to explore and understand and adjust how you identify. Because for a lot of us, we don't even know. And we just see the way people react to us without understanding the footprint that we bring that raises that reaction from them. Please share this and motivate and empower other people to really reflect and create their identities.